Welcome back. And now for our last session of the day, when we pick up on a lot of the things we've discussed during the day and in the previous sessions, and to find out what some of our most prominent senior executives from the out-of-home market are thinking, both about the here and now and the future. Now, I probably mentioned earlier, Kate Nicholls had to slip away because she's doing her full-time job of lobbying for the industry, and she's on a call with one of the ministers, as are actually two of our panelists, Karen Jones and Simon Emily. They'll be joining us around about 5 o'clock and possibly spilling the beans, who knows. But to start the conversation, it's my great pleasure to introduce my first two panelists, Emma Woods, CEO of Wagamama, and Martin Wollstonecroft, CEO of ARC Inspirations.
Hi, Peter.
How are you?
Peter.
Good to see you this afternoon. So it's a slight change, but it's just the three of us to crack on with the first part of the interview. As I said, we'll be joined about halfway through, but it gives us a bit more time to chat as well. I don't know if you were listening to the Minette Batters interview just now, and one of the things that sort of came out, I think, quite clearly in the effectiveness of the NFU in lobbying, but just generally, is the fact that how they've got the public on their side. I sort of worry perhaps, obviously the public always comes into our outlets, whether it's bars and pubs or whether it's restaurants, and perhaps that gives us sometimes a false sense of security that are always on our side, bearing in mind that there's an awful lot of opinion polls which are saying the public is quite happy to see pubs locked down as long as I can see my grandmother at Christmas, sort of thing. So, how good is the image? Not just about pandemic, how good is the image of the industry? Emma, how do you see it from your point of view?
Well, I think if you look at YouGov stats, there is a cohort of people who are very nervous about going out to eat, and that's been the same. Pretty much that level hasn't changed all the way through. But the thing that really encourages me is that when we are allowed to be open, we see lots of people.
Yeah.
And so interestingly, we've just opened up in Wales again, and the restaurants are full. I don't know what Martin will say. So I feel very positive about the image. I think we've done a really incredible job as a sector of creating this concept for the customer called hospitality. It may have existed to us at Peach Awards over years, but it exists in the mind of the customer now that this is an important group of this important industry, and it makes a meaningful contribution to the economy and supports lots of jobs. So I'm quite positive, actually.
Martin, how positive are you? Are we getting it right with our messaging to the wider public?
What messaging? I think what's difficult is we don't know when we can open and what tiers and what measures we can open, and we need that fast. We're meant to be opening on December the 3rd. To answer your question is just echoing what Emma says there, really, in terms of when we closed down, those last 3 days when we closed down on November the 5th, our sales were up like 200%. So people knew they were going to lockdown, and they knew they were going to really, really miss us, and they wanted to enjoy it. And August, when Eat Out to Help Out, was our best ever August. So in terms of, I think our customers are there, they're desperate to get back out in our places and bounce straight back. So I'm very, very optimistic, and our teams are there, they're ready to go, and we're very energetic, and I think it's going to be very exciting, to be honest. And depending on the tiers and the measures in place, I'm looking forward to being, it'll be exciting, it'll be challenging, managing, fitting in as many customers as we can with the bookings, but also doing it in a safe and professional way. That's going to be the biggest challenge, because I think the demand's going to be there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you both say. Certainly the data I've seen, the run-up to this lockdown was very different than the run-up to the first lockdown, where people were actually ahead of probably lockdown and not going out. And this time, everyone had a big weekend out before the lockdown, and obviously hoping. So I think you're right, actually, that the core customers are very loyal. I think all the data shows that people are very, very comfortable with it. Phil Tate showed a lot of that earlier. But I suppose, do we need to go beyond that, or is it we work with our core business? I suppose that's the issue, because obviously the industry has been really active in doing lots of great things. I mean, you know, Emma, you're connecting with students at the moment. I mean, actually tell us a bit about that. That's quite interesting, because poor guys are really are in lockdown, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've found it really important to kind of meet the customer where they are over the course of this 9 months. And so you've gone through phases. So when we went into lockdown 1, we met them by inspiring them to cook with Steve Mangleshot, showing recipe demonstrations. When we were coming out of lockdown, we met them in terms of talking to them about safety. So this point about which I think is spent a lot of time doing that. Lots of people did that, and that's why I think people are so confident to go out. And at the moment, we're one of our big cohorts of customers is students, and they can't, in lots of places, they can't go out. They can't go out. So it's not a case of us being able to say, come and eat Wagamama. So the conversations we're having really with them are largely about mental health. And we're working with this fantastic partnership called Young Minds. And we're actually getting some of the students to help talk to each other. So we had a big takeover on all our platforms last week, where Ben West, who's this very impressive student, just talk to other students about the sorts of things they should be thinking about. And we're doing food drops. We are where they are literally locked in. And the rationale for that really is that if we can kind of connect with them when they need us, which I think they do at the moment, then actually when we get out of this horrid time, you know, I'm assuming that the affection that they have for the brand will be there and be stronger. But I mean, they are just having the most awful time, awful time. And the mental health consequences for this generation that are going to university or not going to university at the moment is we won't know for a number of months.
I mean, generally, are you changing the way you communicate with your customers, particularly not just during these lockdown periods, but also, you know, during the pandemic? Has it focused your mind? Are you doing different things, Martin? You know, because obviously you haven't got everybody coming back in; they're coming in different circumstances. And obviously you know, everyone is working hard for as much trade as you can. Certainly. We will be again, hopefully, when we get some sort of opening after December the 3rd. I mean, have you changed the way you communicate, how you engage with your customer base?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is going to be bookings for Christmas. Is last week, the same point last year, we had £2 million of sales booked in for December. Then last week, we only had £50,000 booked in. So that's going to be a massive challenge for ourselves as a business and all the other operators out there, is when customers can understand how they can get out and what measures that they can experience. Is I would say that probably 90% of our customers and our sales is going to come from bookings. So in terms of the way we're communicating and setting ourselves up to communicate with our customers is going to be a massive jigsaw about how we can book as many people in to give them a great time, but in a COVID secure way. And that's going to be a massive challenge for ourselves. And it's, you know, we can't take that for granted. And we had a sales meeting yesterday about how we can really attack that. So when we know what tiers we're going to be in is how we can get people to email in, book online or phone in to get those bookings in. And then how we manage those bookings to get as many people in is going to be a real challenge for ourselves. So, but in terms of going outside, we've got enough business with our core customers, and for the moment and for December, I don't feel as though there's a need to push outside that at the moment.
What about you, Emma? And in terms of, because obviously, I mean, you've got a marketing background. I mean, I've known you a number of years. You know, your work with Merlin and Pizza Express before that. You know, has this changed the way people look at marketing? I'm not talking about promotion, general, about marketing and communication with your customer base.
Well, it changed it for us, especially in the lockdown, because we didn't want to spend any money. So the only conversations you could have were organic ones.
Yeah.
And this is my point about meeting the customer. You have to be doing something interesting for them. So we've developed, I think, over the last 9 months, a much more active two-way dialogue. And I see a number of brands doing that really well. I mean, lots of brands were doing it at the start around their support for the NHS or their support for key workers, and it was really engaging people in it. But yeah, so I think it has changed quite profoundly. And
Well,
I
I've
think
got-
also, if you think about next year, you know, you've just got to be so much more careful about cash. And I had a
Yeah.
£600,000 cinema kind of blockbuster thing booked all this year. That was the first thing that got cancelled. I won't be making a cinema out again anytime soon.
Yeah. So you're being more focused, and you know every penny counts, and you know everything's going to be focused.
Yeah.
I've got, nice to say, I've got Kate Nichols back with me as well. So she's off her call. I think we can probably pan out now to take Kate in now, are we? Yes, we are indeed. There we are, Kate.
Great.
Let's see, any news from government you can share with us, or is that just day-to-day stuff at the moment?
Well, this is part of a regular programme of dialogue where we are ensuring that government understands needs and concerns. So no update in terms of outputs, but lots of inputs going into government to tell them what we need to see happening, to talk about the stability, to pick up on what Martin's point. People need to know which parts of the country are in which tier. And then we need to know the restrictions, and then we need to know the route map out of all of this. So, you know, there's a lot of work still going through the sausage machine of government, but unfortunately nothing was spat out today.
So we don't know. We haven't got any timing or where we're going to go back into.
Not yet,
Yeah,
but this time round they can't do something that they did last time round. Last time round they announced it, and they had the ability to do it at very short notice. It's got to go through Parliament. They've got to have regulations. They've got to have a debate, which means we will get notice.
Yeah. Which coming back to you guys, actually, Martin, it's about, you know, how are you preparing? I know it's very difficult to prepare, but what are you expecting to be able to do, or what are you expecting your customers are going to want from you when they come back? Because obviously, you know, there's probably, as you say, increased nervousness out there.
We can only do what we can do, can't we? And I think what we're doing as a business is we're putting up our Christmas decorations, we're putting up our outside structures, we're putting together our Christmas playlists, we're getting our Christmas hats ready, and you know, for December the 3rd, we're ready to throw open those doors. Some doors, you know, we might not be able to open, you know, we don't know really, and that's what's frustrating. I think what would be interesting for myself is do we have a date when Parliament are debating whether we can open and what tiers, Kate?
Well, actually, let's hold it there, because that's a question, I think, for everybody, because we've got Karen Jones and Simon Emily waiting to join us. So we're going to take a quick break, a non-commercial break, and then we'll be back with the whole panel, and we'll pick up on that point and how we're going to prepare for post-lockdown, we hope. Thanks very much. Back in a Well, welcome. The wonders of technology. We've got Simon Emily and Karen Jones joining us as well. Kate joined us a little before Simon and Karen to bring you up to speed. We've been talking a bit before about communication with the public and how people can keep that going. But I think Martin threw a question back at Kate, having all three of you just come off a call, is to try and get a sense of what we know about when we might hear about when we might start, sort of thing. So it's that confusing, isn't it?
It is, and I'm not going to be able to give you a definitive answer to Martin's question. I'm really sorry. You know, with a fair wind, with the best of intentions, you look at the parliamentary timetable, you would count backwards from the 3rd of December and you would look at sort of 2 or 3 days before that. You may get towards the end of next week that you would hear something, but you'll need 1 day for regulations to be tabled, 1 day for them to be debated, and then the next day they would take effect. So in a sense, that's the sort of broadest schematic that we could have. And also you do have that schedule, the steady drumbeat from Public Health England and the Health Department about the health stats, which tends to come out most Thursdays. So I think, you know, if you were making a working assumption of next Thursday, next Friday, having an indication of what might be happening, where levels of infection would be, and then those 3 days of parliamentary notice before it took effect. But it isn't possible to give any definitive dates, I'm afraid.
Well, I suppose with, as you say, we don't know exactly what people are going back into, so it's difficult to plan. But I suppose what I'd like to ask you guys is, bearing in mind what we saw last lockdown, we've just been talking about the fact that as we went into this second lockdown, demand for going out was really high. We had a good last weekend. We touched on a bit about what expectations. I'm trying to get a sense of, are you going to change your business model or do things differently in terms of the experience you provide for your customers, which will perhaps mitigate any more draconian measures by the government, assuming we can open into some sense? Bit of a convoluted question there, Simon. What are you thinking about at Fuller's? What's it going to look like going into a Fuller's pub?
Well, we're working on so many different scenarios that it makes planning incredibly difficult. I mean, I think when you go back to July, Peter, the country was in a very different place with how they felt about going back into pubs. I think they felt slightly uncertain, nervous, and more worried about safety. And then if you fast forward to how things got to in September, October, I think they'd seen that pubs and restaurants were incredibly safe. They admired the protocols that we had in place, and actually people were feeding back to us that I'm coming to a pub because I know it's safe. Whereas if I go to a friend's house or I go to a party, it's not safe. So I think the focus that we had when we reopened in July, clearly we're still going to be clean. We're still going to have a lot of those protocols, but I don't think we'll have the same nervousness from our customers to overcome. I think they now respect pubs for what they've done. And will be, in my view, particularly in communities and rural locations, desperately keen to get back out and socialise safely in pubs, Peter. So, we certainly won't be changing our offer, which is fundamentally around fresh food, great range of drinks and great service. We've accelerated the use of digital and all of the things that have been spoken about earlier on in the conference. But I think the big change is the way that customers feel about hospitality now compared to the nervousness in July.
Yeah, Karen. Obviously, you sit on the boards of a range of businesses in the sector, including Mowgli and Hawksmoor and Frontier Pubs as well. So, I mean, are you seeing changes in those businesses? I mean, obviously they're run by chief execs, but of course you also run Prezzo yourself. I mean, how are you playing the environment across those? Are you learning from other people in the industry as well?
Oh gosh, yeah, always learning, that's for sure. And I think that one of the things that we probably all learned, among things we never thought we'd learn during this pandemic, right? The whole new skills needed to run hospitality businesses, including a working knowledge of epidemiology. But I think that I entirely agree with what Simon said. But I think that one thing that I think will be a feature of all our businesses, restaurants and pubs going forward from now on, for a long time actually, is the sort of preoccupation with hygiene. Maybe preoccupation is the wrong word, but I think it's just built into what we do now. And actually that's probably made us better. We probably have learned things through that. And I know if you look at China and people who ran businesses in China during the previous SARS epidemics, that they said that preoccupation with hygiene, both surface hygiene and personal hygiene, sort of hands, face, space thing, didn't go away, and it did become a feature. And I think that's a good thing. I think it just, anything that causes you to look again at your operational standards and make them ever better is what we want. It just moves us forward a step. And I think that's been really woven into the way that we do business now. And I think that our industry has made such gargantuan and successful efforts to do so, and I think that, as Simon said, is recognised by our customers and will underpin their reasons to come. I think the other thing, I know it's not exactly your question, Peter, but about how customers view hospitality now. I think that again, I echo Simon. There was a hurdle to jump in July about coming back into hospitality, but I think the thing is, what we have seen and what we all have to hang on to, and also of course build on, is there is a genuine love for hospitality. People come back into hospitality and they realise how lovely it is to be in a restaurant or to be in a pub or to be in a Wagamama or to be in a bar. It's just lovely. You have lovely times there with people you want to be with and people you can be with right now. And that's such an important thing. I do think we have built in the UK an industry to be proud of over the last, it's just got better and better and better. And it is, when you walk down a high street now and everything's closed and shuttered and dark, it is a very lonely place to be. When you walk down that same high street with everything lit up and people on the pavements and coming in and out, it is a wonderful place to be. And that isn't just for hospitality, that's for places to live, it's for retail, it's for office work. We are a very important part, a hugely important part. I was going to say a linchpin, but maybe that overstates it, but I don't think actually it does. I think we're a hugely important part of that ecosystem of offices and retail and hospitality. And I think that's what supports and furthers the economy.
Emma, do you think as a food-led business completely, because I want to come on to the alcohol thing in a minute, but and the fact that you are omni-channel, your brand works in, deliveries becoming more important to you. Does that give you an advantage, do you think, going forward? Do you think casual dining chains like you do have an advantage?
Well, we've got lots of disadvantages.
Presumably it doesn't feel like that anyway. So, well, let's put it a different way. Do you think the fact that you are more omni-channel, you are leveraging your brand in other areas gives you a better chance of getting through this? Let's put it that way.
Okay, I mean, I think we were helped by having a robust delivery business because it meant that we could manage our cash burn. I mean, it gave us what I've described as COVID resilience. It has given us that. And even now, I'm not making any money at the moment. I've got 114 sites open, but I'm able to avoid laying people off. I mean, there are lots of people furloughed. So I think it has given us some COVID resilience. And we're a business that was too successful to do as CVA. So we are still paying, or will be paying, our rents. We've got a lot of sites in London which are very highly, I would say, over-rented now because of the number of people who are actually there. So I think it's just about, yes is the answer, it's a positive. But the other bit that's a positive is it keeps our chefs making food. It is really important that chefs make food. If we want to start, the thing I'm nervous about the third is we have to go from 0 to 60, whereas in the summer we have the time to open up slowly. I know some of the pubs and my pub group in the restaurant group opened quite fast, but we opened quite slowly. We got confident in our COVID safe. We're not going to do that on December the 3rd. We're opening 130 if we can. And you can only do that if you've got chefs that know how to make your food. You can only do that if you've got a supply chain that's working. So in that sense, it has given us some resilience,
Let's talk about alcohol, because it seems to what we've had with the curfew, the fact that the government does have a problem with alcohol. This sense that people misbehave and they give up social distances. They've had a couple of pints. With that in mind, that may be right or wrong, but that seems to be coming through. Martin, is that changing the way you're going to operate? You're already, obviously you're a bar operation, but you're taking on table service. You were taking on table service before. You and I have talked before about perhaps the bar changing. How do we cope with this? Because dare I say, this is, Boris Johnson's government seems more of a successor to Oliver Cromwell, and perhaps the heady days of Tony Blair's deregulation of licensing seems a long way away. How are you going to? Is it a problem for you? Do you think? Are you going to change what you're going to do?
I think we've already changed in terms of people ordering via an app. We've got some of our sites that are up to 90% sales on an app, and also so in terms of that's materially changed our business and behaviour of our customers, and also it's already changed the sales mix as well. So we've seen a greater proportion of our sales going towards cocktails and people relaxing down. We have seen beer declining as well, in terms of draft beer sales declining in favour of cocktails. So in terms of, it's already started to change in terms of customers ordering on an app, and that's not going to go away. I think that's here to stay. I do have a concern that the government might try and seize this opportunity to try and get some hold over. You know, isn't it strange now when you see on social media that rugby games or football games from the bygone era cropping up on social media, and see everybody shoulder to shoulder cheering in a pub and having a great time. So the last thing we want is the government trying to get hold of the industry and saying, you know, it's going to be table service only going forward, and that is something I've got a great concern about. And
indeed,
it is worrying, but we've already seen in terms of table service, app technology being fast tracked, people going cashless, which has been a great success for ourselves. So there's been a lot of changes, and we're not going to reverse that. So that's what I've seen so far.
Yeah, Simon, can I bring you in here about, you know, obviously selling beer? I mean, you know, you used to run a brewery as well. I mean, you know, it's fundamental to what you're about. How is this impacting you? Do you see it as a problem, this anti-alcohol sentiment which seems to be creeping in? Or perhaps you don't think it is?
Well, I think that you have to paint a picture and look ahead to what happens once the vaccine has been rolled out. And the government then have no right to continue to enforce these restrictions that we're operating under once the vaccine's been rolled out. And I think I've certainly had it confirmed to me that they have no intention of doing that. And we have to take them at the moment on their word. I suspect there will undoubtedly be a health agenda, as there was a health agenda before the virus took hold. And you know, we have to face facts. You know, less than 50% of all beer that's consumed in this country is consumed in pubs. So you know, I think if the government have health to tackle, if they want to enforce further restrictions on how you get served in a pub, they're starting in completely the wrong place. I think Martin's really touched on the main key point, which is that how we've all handled the last 7 months has introduced new ways to serve customers. And I'm more interested in what our customers want and what our staff want to operate pubs successfully. And that they're the things that I'm focused on and we're focused on. So as you said, the ability to order through an app, I think table booking will accelerate even more. And I'm more interested in making things easier for the customer and economically being able to run the pub successfully. But the essence of a great pub is the fact that you can order at the bar and that you can stand up and you can sit down and you can have a great meal. And I think it's that essence that we need to protect. And I don't believe the government have an incentive to actually place further restrictions on the industry, but I do think we have to continue to adapt. And we've all learned things in the last 7 months that will carry on forwards once the vaccine's been rolled out.
Hey, I mean, from your point of view, talking to the government on a regular basis, is there real a sense about alcohol maybe more regulated even when this is all over?
No, I would echo what Simon said. I'm not picking that up. I think from the health lobby, and you have to remember that it is
That's always been there,
I was going to say, it's always been there. The chief medical officer will always want to talk about alcohol and alcohol consumption. There is a very big difference between talking about legitimate concerns about crowded social spaces and disinhibition at the height of a pandemic than there is going forward. But I'm not getting any sense that they want to regulate the industry or think that that will be the norm. Now, I highly suspect that Westminster City Council and others of their ilk may well seize the opportunity to say, we don't need to stand outside pubs, you don't need to do various things. But I don't get a sense of that from the centre of government, and I do see them as being very time-limited restrictions that they're looking to impose.
Well, let's pick up that thing about local authorities and more about the reimagining and rebuilding of our urban centres. We were talking earlier with some developers and landlords about that. Karen, I mean, how do we get people back into city centres, or do you think city centres, one, are going to change forever? Two, we need to work with local government to actually make them attractive places again. Sorry, a number of questions there, but basically it's how do we get people back?
Obviously, the way you make things back is you make them desirable and that people want to go there. And I think cities that, our cities, our UK cities are very desirable places to be, but can be more desirable. I think that one of the things that we are going through a very deep disruption. And I don't think any of us know exactly how this is going to pan out. We can all guess and we can all speculate, but none of us really know. But what we do know is that certain things have been given a big shove forward. One is what we're doing now, which is working and meeting virtually. Another is the omni-channel that you talked that Simon and Emma talked about. So actually, and Martin, in terms of the way that you order, and also the fact that delivery has been given a big shove forward as well. And some of those things will fade away a little bit, and some of those things will maintain. I'm 100% with Simon that I think that the desire to go into a pub and stand at the bar and order will remain. And I think there's a difference between drinking too much and safe socializing. I think I think we can all see those. So back to the city centre question. I think that probably we all think that in many cases, going back to the office every day, 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever it is, or that you work, is probably going to change. And I think that there will be a mix in terms of virtual and office working. But I think in the same way, we're in the hospitality business. We know how much people like being with people. And I, for one, and I don't think that I'm the only one, feel the lack of interaction in teams, in the workplace. And I know that it's a very hard thing to replace, however good one is at Teams or Zoom. And I think that after a while, we all can think we're super productive, but actually there is a sort of intangible productivity that comes with being in people in a room and sitting discussing things and scribbling things on a whiteboard and coming out of there feeling not only have I moved things forward, but also how nice was that? Just being with people, having a chat with people and seeing how people are. And I don't think that that's going to go forever. I don't. So if you take that at the heart of the regeneration of our cities, then people are going to want to get back into their offices. And I think that that's one of the key things. And when they get back in their offices, they're going to want to have that delicious cup of coffee or that delicious lunch or that sandwich or whatever the case may be, or that pub after work for sure, that they're going to want to go to. And that's how that's how the wheel starts turning again. So for me, the sooner that message goes out, that it's encouraging people to get back into their offices, the sooner that really begins to help this whole wheel, retail, office, hospitality, get turning. And I am a believer in our cities. I think that local councils and property owners will realise how important, to use a sort of slightly overused phrase, placemaking is for cities. That if people are going to, given that online has been shoved forward again in an online shopping in this pandemic, then to get people to go into and shop in our city centres, it has to be an experience worth going for. And hospitality is at the heart of that. You are not going to go shopping unless you can sit down where you want to and have something to eat, have a delicious cup of coffee, etc. And I think all that will come. So I think thinking more about that and more carefully about curation of how that experience feels, how easy it is to get somewhere, how enjoyable it is once you're there. I don't think we should forget how the opening of our pavements has affected us, has changed environments, and local councils have been at the heart of that, along with MHTLG. So Westminster is part of that, and so are many councils across the country. And I think that now that's probably something that we've all wanted for a long time, to feel that hospitality spills out more into the streets, that is more obvious. And I actually think that's wonderful. And I think that if we can keep that going, obviously in a safe and sensible way, and all those things, which we will, I think that makes places nicer to be in. And I think that will help the whole thing. And I think that's been as other things will turn out to be, a positive move forward during the last few months.
Excellent. Right, we're running out of time. It's always the way with these things, but fantastic. Can I just finish up with a couple of last thoughts? So, in terms of getting a sense of what is you think is going to be your biggest challenge in the next let's say 6 months, Simon.
Crikey, there isn't one big challenge. I think we look at everything through windows, Peter, and I suppose at the moment it's retaining the enthusiasm of people that are being put on furlough for a second long period. I think that's really tough. My team are going through really, it's a challenging time for them. Putting 4,000 people back at home, they're really finding it tough. I think that's the biggest one at the moment, Peter.
Martin, what about you?
Probably managing the demand and the excitement of customers who want to come out and really enjoy themselves in a safe COVID manner. There's could be a trade-off there, because they're so excited to get out, mix with each other, see each other again. Christmas time, they used to put their arms around each other, singing Fairy Tale of New York. And there's going to be a lot of pressures on the managers and the staff to basically say, you can't do that. You've got to sit down here with your own household, etc., etc. So I think managing our customers when they're going to be so excited to get out for Christmas and excited to get out full stop is going to be a great challenge for not only our managers, our teams, but also for pressure on local authorities as well. So that's something that's going to cause us a great challenge as operators.
Last word with you, Emma. What's the big thing, if there's one?
Well, I think we've got to do two things as leaders. One, we've got to manage the real challenges of the short term, opening, closing, the emotional roller coaster for teams. There's a question mark about January, are we going to close again, which I think will be really tough.
Yeah.
That January is such a tough month anyway. But we've also got to, there are some sunny uplands ahead or isn't that what Boris says? We've got to find a way to sort of be planning for that. And it's that short term, which actually can be all consuming, and also getting your head into, okay, so when we come out of this and we have a vaccine and actually the sun's shining again and people are out and about, how are we going to grow? Because there are lots of opportunities, and it will be the businesses that are ready and have done some thinking and probably done some testing that will take advantage of that. So it's that balance for me.
Well, thank you all very much for your time and your insight. And thank you, Simon and Karen, for joining us midway through. That was very exciting, bit of drama. Interesting, I think there's a lot of optimism from you guys, but a lot of reality. And I think we've seen that through the day, whether it's from you or Danny Meyer from New York. So thank you all very much. Hopefully see you a bit later on. I can't say, which I'd normally say this time of year, see you in the pub at the end of this, but I hope I will see you in the pub or a Wagamama, or somewhere similar very soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And now we're really coming to the end of this. Is the end of our first virtual conference. Now we do have the awards coming up. Kate, quick word from you. I mean, you've been in and out, been here quite a lot. What do you learn today?
Plenty of reasons to be cheerful. I mean, I think, you heard about it has been tough, but the operators are resilient. Those who have come through this are even more resilient and better prepared. And I think Emma summed that up. And I think there's a high degree of optimism out there. Take it from right at the start with Phil's presentation, the appetite, the desire, the warmth of feeling from consumers to our operators, and the desire to get back out there and pre-book, some good reasons to be cheerful. And if we can encourage more customers to pre-book throughout the year, then you get the money in quicker. Yeah. So, I take a lot from it, but, the capriciousness of all the environments that we're in. The other single thing that I've got is so much unknown. Capricious landlords, capricious local authorities, capricious political audience. Yeah. Uncertainty is the new normal. Yeah. Well, actually, that's a new word of the year, capricious. Thank you for that one. It's growing. Phil, last word with you.
I think it was just the whole theme of hygiene being the foundations on which hospitality is going to be built, the fact that we need to look at things hyper-locally, but it is the fact that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's just how we get through it. And I think that's where we are, really. So I think to wrap up, I'd just like to say thank you to all of our sponsors, especially Asahi, CPL Learning, Davies Cough Alliance, Diageo, Forth, Omnivore, RSM, Zonal. Thanks also to our network partners, Caterer.com, Nestle, Young Pingo, Chapman Ventilation and Freeths. A special thank you to Kate and Peter for the phenomenal job you've done so far. And we see you again in 15 minutes at 5:45 for the awards. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Phil.